Good morning, I am Dr. Oak again, and we are seeing our ECG lectures in our channel Critical Care Basics. Right? This is the 27th ECG lecture. In this lecture, we are talking about mechanisms of arrhythmias part 2. In this lecture, we are going to talk about triggered activity. So, let's start with the triggered activity. Before talking about the triggered activity, let's revise the action potential of a normal contractile cardiac myocyte. In my last lecture of automaticity, we had revised the action potential of the SA node. Here we are revising the action potential of a cardiac myocyte. I have talked in detail about this in my first ECG lecture. The link is given below. If you find it useful, go and have a look. Cardiac action potential, in this we have simplified it so that it is easy to understand, and we have reduced the number of channels, but there are as many multiple channels which are not mentioned here. But for all practical purposes, we have phase 4, which is a resting membrane potential, right? And something happens and suddenly the sodium channel gets open due to action potential reaching from the Purkinje fibers or from calcium coming out from the junctions. Slowly the membrane potential rises, and as soon as the threshold, the membrane potential normally is about -90 or -85, and as soon as the threshold of say -80 is reached, the sodium channels open and lot of sodium comes inside, causing the membrane potential to rise from -85 to +20. This is going away from the negative normal potential or resting membrane potential. That is why this is called going away from the pole or depolarization. Right? As soon as the cell membrane potential reaches +20, the sodium gets closed and the fast potassium channels open, causing a small decrease in the membrane potential, but soon these fast potassium channels close and L type of calcium channels open. These calcium channels bring calcium inside, while at the same time slow potassium channels open which take potassium outside. So the calcium is coming inside and potassium is going outside. Right? So these two negate each other and the membrane potential stays at a horizontal plateau phase, which is called as phase 2. At the end of phase 2, the calcium gets closed and slow as well as fast potassium channels open, causing rapid potassium exit or efflux, bringing the cell membrane potential back to its normal -85 or -90, which becomes the resting membrane potential. So this becomes phase 3. In contrast to SA node action potential, here we have phase 4, then phase 0, 1, 2, 3. In SA node action potential, we have phase 4, phase 0 and 3. So phase 1 and 2 is extra in cardiac myocyte action membrane potential. Having revised this, let's now jump into triggered activity. But before we discuss about triggered activity, let's also discuss about the refractory period. What is refractory period? Once a cell is depolarized, it cannot depolarize further or it cannot depolarize again till some time has passed. This is because the sodium channels exist in 3 different phases. First phase is open phase. When the sodium gets open, lot of sodium comes inside, and at this point the sodium channels close and they get inactivated. So once they get inactivated, they require energy to reactivate and come to the closed state again. So this takes time. So this time is called the absolute refractory period. In this refractory period, whatever the strength of the impulse, it will not be able to depolarize the cell, right? But half halfway down phase 3, 50% of the sodium channels have come from inactivated phase to closed phase. In this closed phase, if there is a larger amplitude of current or a strong current, then it can cause depolarization. So this is a relative refractory period. This is absolute refractory period and this is the relative refractory period, right? These are the sodium channels. This is the voltage gated sodium channel. This is closed, this is open, and this is inactivated. From inactivated, 50% channels, sodium channels come to a closed state by mid part of phase 3 of repolarization, cardiac action potential, and there, if you give a strong impulse, they can again cause depolarization. Now, what is triggered activity? We have seen that till the membrane potential is fully repolarized, you cannot have an action potential, but sometimes you see a bump like this. Triggered activity is a result of electrophysiological phenomena called as after depolarization. So this is after depolarization occurring before the repolarization is complete. After depolarizations are focal electrical events that result in repeat depolarization. So what is after depolarization? It is repeat depolarization of a single cell or a group of cells. So early depolarization occur during the plateau phase. So this can happen in the phase 2 or phase 3, then they are called early after depolarization, or they can occur after phase 4, then they are called late after depolarization. We will learn this in some detail. There are some slides which have a repetition, so please bear with me. It will help to drive the concept inside. This is early after depolarization. You can see this is the action potential before the phase 2 is complete, another depolarization has started. It can also occur in phase 3. So these are early after depolarization. These are bradycardia dependent. So these are more common when there is bradycardia or whenever the action potential is prolonged. So we'll come to detailed discussion soon. While delayed after depolarization occurs after the repolarization is complete. So this is delayed depolarization and this is tachycardia dependent. This is more likely to happen when there is tachycardia. Early after depolarization. Early after depolarizations are classified according to whether the membrane potential oscillations occur in phase 2 or phase 3. Early after depolarization occur readily in some regions, especially the Purkinje fibers and the mid-myocardial cells. Prolongation of repolarization, particularly if heterogeneous and in the setting of slow heart rate. So whenever the depolarization or repolarization is prolonged, especially for example some drugs which prolong the repolarization, for example class 3 anti-arrhythmic drugs, so they can give rise to early after depolarization. The phase 3 early after depolarization is mediated by slow L-type calcium channels and sodium channels. Phase 3 or phase 2 is mediated exclusively by L-type of calcium channels, slow calcium channels. Phase 2 are less likely to propagate and markedly exaggerate heterogeneity of repolarization and consequently are more likely to induce functional re-entry. So they are less likely to propagate. They can cause depolarization but less likely to propagate and markedly exaggerate the heterogeneity. For re-entry, you have to have heterogeneity, tissues of different wavelength and electrophysiological properties. We will come to that when we talk about re-entry. So this early after depolarization create a milieu for re-entry, right? Action potential prolongation induced by drugs is the most common circumstance promoting the development of early after depolarization. For example, class 1 antiarrhythmic or class 3 antiarrhythmics, some non-sedating antihistaminics, certain antibiotics and phenothiazines. These are the same drugs which cause prolonged QT interval, are among the commonly used drugs that increase the action potential duration and promote early after depolarization. depolarization and triggered arrhythmias. Hypomagnesemia promotes early after depolarization and triggered arrhythmias because magnesium stabilizes the membrane voltage, right, and increases the threshold for L type of calcium channel activation, right. Bradycardia and hypokalemia also promote the development of early after depolarization. So this is a diagrammatic representation. Class 1 and class 1C and class 3, not the class B. These three type of drugs prolong the action potential. The prolongation is predominantly in the phase 0 and phase 3, right? So the prolonged action potential, whenever it happens, it has a chance of developing early after depolarization. So repetition again, early after depolarizations are triggered during prolonged action potential. A prolonged action potential allows a longer window for reopening of L type of calcium channels during phase 2 or occasionally phase 3 of the action potential. L type of calcium current depolarizes the membrane before repolarization. So before repolarization is complete, this L type of calcium channels takes the calcium inside, and this influx causes depolarization before the repolarization is complete. So EADs occur at a slow stimulation or after a ventricular pause when the action potential duration is prolonged and they are suppressed with fast heart rates. So whenever the heart rate is fast, these do not occur. They are thought to initiate the polymorphic ventricular arrhythmias torsades points (TDP) that is found in inherited or acquired long QT syndrome (LQTS). So whenever this polymorphic ventricular arrhythmia torsade occurs in a setting of long QT, acquired or congenital, most probable mechanism is early after depolarization. Triggered activity can initiate TDP, but TDP may be a re-entrant mechanism. So it can initiate TDP. At the same time, early after depolarization causes a heterogeneity of electrophysiological cells or tissue coming together. So they set in the pathway for re-entry, and re-entry, especially functional spiral re-entry, is required for maintenance of TDP. We will come to this when we talk of re-entry. For example, any drug which blocks a HERG channel, it blocks the influx of potassium, efflux of potassium, exit of potassium. So what happens in normal phase 3, the potassium comes out, but this channel has been blocked by some drugs, for example amiodarone, potassium channel blocking drugs, and what happens? The action potential duration is prolonged and the calcium channel is continuously pumping calcium inside, so it can cause a depolarization before the repolarization is complete. In ECG it can look like a prolonged QT which can later give rise to torsade. Delayed after depolarizations are different. They result from intracellular calcium overload, are triggered after action potential is fully repolarized. They occur after the phase 4, right, when the cells are fully repolarized. In calcium overload, calcium released by the sarcoplasmic reticulum transiently is re-released into cytoplasm, and this stimulates the sodium calcium exchanger. This is a pump that pumps 3 sodium ions for 1 calcium ion, and this can cause entry into sodium ions, producing delayed after depolarization if it reaches the threshold level. If DAD reaches the threshold voltage, it can initiate action potential. Causes are myocardial ischemia, digoxin, we'll come to it how digoxin causes this, inherited arrhythmias, syndromes such as catecholaminergic polymorphic ventricular tachycardia, heart failure, hypokalemia, and hypercalcemia. This is a diagrammatic representation. Due to the action of adrenaline or sometime due to the hypercalcemia or some other mechanism, the calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum is pumped into the cell, causing calcium overload, and this activates the sodium calcium exchanger. Don't confuse it with sodium potassium exchange pump, ATPase. What happens is this pump takes 3 sodium inside while pushing 1 calcium outside. So 3 charges inside, 2 charges outside, causing net sodium retention inside. This can cause gradual positivity in the membrane potential, and if this reaches the threshold, can generate action potential. This can be encouraged or intensified by digitalis, because digitalis blocks this sodium potassium pump. Sodium potassium pumps take sodium outside and brings 2 potassium inside for 3 sodium. So net positive charges are exited or sent out by this sodium potassium ATPase. This helps in keeping the cells electronegative. But this is blocked by digoxin. So digoxin can increase the chances of developing arrhythmias due to delayed after depolarization. Just a comparison of early after depolarization and late after depolarization occurs during phase 2 or phase 3. This occurs during or just after phase 4. Phase 2 is due to augmented opening of calcium channels, L type, and phase 3 is due to opening of sodium channels plus calcium channels. This is due to elevated cytosolic calcium causing the stimulation of sodium calcium exchange pump. This can occur at a slow stimulation rates or after ventricular pause, and it is suppressed by fast rates, and this can occur at increased heart rates. Action potential prolongation drugs such as class 1 or class 3 antiarrhythmic drugs, antihistaminic, phenothiazines, some antibiotics, hypomagnesemia, hypokalemia, bradycardia, congenital long QT syndromes are the causes. Here digitalis toxicity, sympathetic activation, increased ischemia or reperfusion, hypertrophy, heart failure, hypokalemia, hypercalcemia, and catecholaminergic polymorphic VT. This could be the causes. So we stop here for triggered activity. In the next class, we will talk about re-entry. So if you are liking these videos, please like, subscribe and share. Meet you again. Thumbs up.